Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Johnston and I'm an instructional specialist at the Richland campus of Dallas College. Today I'm going to talk about a project that I embarked on with the help of many colleagues, faculty and staff and students in the fall of 2020. So in the midst of the pandemic and not being able to see each other face to face, both coworkers and students, I wanted to attempt to replicate the kind of water cooler chats that I have with my colleagues and the hallway talks that I have with students, or the events where we bump into each other and have great conversations. So I worked together with colleagues to create this YouTube news video. So today I want to talk about what we did in creating this news video series, why we did it, and how we did it, and then have some time of reflection and hopefully at the end inspire you and discuss some ideas for you as you engage your students as well as build community with your coworkers during this time of pandemic, but also moving forward as we return hopefully to some semblance of normalcy. So here we go. So first let's talk a little bit about the why. Again, I wanted to connect with colleagues and faculty as well as my students in a friendly way. And then I wanted to, as an ESOL teacher, I wanted to give my students some models for conversation and some kind of real life examples of vocabulary usage, and then kind of give some fodder for in-class discussions and assignments as well. So there's kind of multiple levels of usage for these kind of videos. But then I wanted to make something interesting and engaging that my colleagues would enjoy, that would be kind of a pick-me-up for them, as well as my students, that they would be able to engage the content, get to know their teachers, as well as get to know the campus a little bit. So it's certainly no replacement of campus events and the kind of conversations that we get to have at our English tutoring corner or at just in the hallway conversations that we have. But it is an attempt to build some community, put some names with faces, and get to know each other as teachers and students in a educational environment. So that was really my hope, was to build community and help my students to improve their English as well. So that's kind of the why. Now let's talk about the what I did, what we created. I decided to create a news video series, and I think I really got some inspiration for this through the Good News, Some Good News by John Krasinski. I think he's the one that kind of started that. He put out some videos that were kind of a news format, but it was all positive, uplifting kind of news in the midst of the pandemic. And that was some inspiration. So I used kind of that news video format where it feels kind of like a news desk reporter, but it's not really news per se. It's more little short video clips that are fun, interesting, sometimes silly, but that are good fodder for conversation. They have some vocabulary in there that I wanted my students some exposure with. And then a lot of things that I wanted to be uplifting or encouraging to my students to kind of keep up the good work. You can do it kind of messages within this news video series. So that's what we created. Some of it was interviews with teachers and other staff on our campus, and then some of it was more silly, like a pet update, which was kind of fun and silly, but also just a way to personalize the teachers for the students to know, hey, we're human too. We have our pets, and some of us have our children at home, and we're all in this together. So you'll see some videos with my children, and then the pet update, as well as a weather update. Some of the videos were focused on the season or the holiday, upcoming holidays, things like that, or highlights around our semester. So that's kind of the what we created. So let me just show you some of the examples of what we created. So here is some of the video that we created.
Welcome to the ESOL Weekly or Biweekly News. I'm Amy Pedrosa.
And I'm Matthew Johnston. Let's get started with this week's top tips.
Here are some top tips.
Be dressed for success. Success.
Be prepared. Make a plan to study every day. Find a quiet place to study. Find a quiet place to study every day. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Arrgh. Turn on your video so we can see your pet faces.
So now that you see the what, let's talk a little bit about the how. I'm going to have my colleague Amy Pedrosa join me as we discuss how we created this YouTube news video series.
Yeah, I'm Amy Pedrosa, and I worked with Matthew Johnston on the ESOL Woven, and we work at Richland campus, Dallas College, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we created this. I already briefly described the why. Let's talk about how we did it. So I reached out to you, I know, because you had already had some previous interest in building videos for our students. And then I kind of had this idea, let's make like a kind of news video thing. And then you want to take it from there, Amy, and describe kind of how we built the videos?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think it was just brainstorming, coming up with some things, that sections of the news report that might be interesting for our coworkers, for our students. So, you know, kind of thinking about a traditional news report and then thinking about how that relates to Richland College or Richland campus. And, so I think that was the first thing, just brainstorming, coming up with ideas, and then putting those into action. So reaching out to people. So I know we wanted to do an interview section. We have an interview section each time. We have the weather report, just the different sections, and reaching out to our fellow staff members to have them fill in the gaps, right? To help them, have them make the videos with us, basically. So it's not just us doing everything, but having a joint effort so that everyone can feel more invested and excited to even see themselves in the news report as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because it was a lot of collaboration. It was a lot of setting up Zoom meetings or meetings through Microsoft Teams, and then recording those interviews virtually through Teams or Zoom. And it was a lot of collaboration, and that was one of probably the highlights as well of this whole project. We enjoyed that, being able to work with our coworkers.
Yes, and you mentioned Teams. Teams, I think you found to be the most helpful as far as recording an interview and actually having it come out kind of correctly, or the way that you would want to do it, so that you could actually cut it into an actual video. Zoom was sometimes problematic because it would be switching between the speakers, and then you wouldn't get the first part of it. So I think Teams was the easiest for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of the technology, we are by no means experts. We kind of dabble in recording and trying to make YouTube videos. But yeah, we use Teams mostly for the recording of interviews and things like that. And then I use Camtasia to edit the videos. And again, I'm no expert in that. But then we use YouTube to upload those and share them with faculty and staff and our students. And with YouTube, you can embed those videos into your classroom. We use Blackboard eCampus, so we can embed those videos there. Or you can just send a link to your students for that YouTube video. So that makes it quite easy. If you have any technological knowledge, you could probably get started. Some of you will probably be far more advanced than we are in terms of the technology side.
We made part of this on our cell phones, right? So even you could even do, if you don't have Camtasia, you can still make basic videos with your cell phone, and even cut them and put them together. I did that. So that's also an easy tool. And these days, the apps these days are pretty good. It looks pretty professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I probably took my cues from like Mr. Rogers or something, where he has a super low budget or no budget when he was creating those, the amazing Mr. Rogers Neighborhood. But it was the stories, it was the meaning behind what he was sharing that was valuable. So our videos might not be the highest quality. We tried to do the best as we could, but it was more about getting the content out, getting the interviews out, getting the encouraging content like those top tips and things like that. Amy, do you want to talk about some of the other sections that we created?
Well, we do have the pet update. Speaking of pet update, I think my pet wanted to.
She's one of our main collaborators for this project.
Very much, Ruby. Yes. All right, and now for our weekly pet update.
Weekly pet update.
Which one? Sammy?
The one Simone has.
Smell? That one? Good girl.
No animals were harmed in the making of those videos.
Our coworkers, almost everybody has a cat, actually. And then a few people have dogs, but we are big cat people at our school. So just getting people's cat pictures, I think people love that. I don't know, people love cat videos, people love cat pictures, and that was definitely a highlight. The top tips, I have to say, Matthew's children are the best actors ever. And he made the cutest videos. I think he'll show one, or he has shown one. But they're adorable. And I think many people watch it just to see what his kids are going to be doing.
Yeah, so that was the fun part for me, is involving my kids in the project. And since I was working from home, that was a natural and obvious thing to do, because they were saying, "Daddy, Daddy, play with me." And I said, "I have to work." Well, we could combine those two things together, and they could, work with me and create those videos. And they had a lot of fun joining me in the project as well. And then we had interviews. Do you want to say anything more about the interviews, the section?
Yeah, interviews were great. I think we just, we would pick an interviewee, right? Someone to interview from one of our staff members. And the great thing that Matthew thought of is having another coworker interview them. So a lot of times we have sometimes 3-4 people in these interviews. And again, it's just a conversation over maybe Teams. So it's pretty easy to record. And then we also did kind of a holiday highlight for all of our videos. Our videos fell at the end of the semester. So it was October, which we talked about Halloween, November, Halloween, Day of the Dead, and then Thanksgiving, and then December, Christmas. So I think highlighting that for our students is kind of cool. And then even for our teachers, because our teachers come from all over the place too. So not all of them celebrate all the holidays very deeply. We even had Hanukkah, right? We were able to talk about Hanukkah, which is really cool. I think a lot of people don't know about it. So it was really neat to be able to do those sections as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And one of the things that just kind of naturally came up from those interviews was a lot of vocabulary that we realized, hey, maybe our students don't understand this vocabulary. So I put a little blurb on the video itself, like you can just add some text into the video, or you could do that by captioning it as well. And then one of our coworkers created a vocabulary list for our students to study. So that was just a natural way for students to observe conversation, authentic conversation through these interviews, and then to learn some new vocabulary and even some idioms as well through this project. So that was a lot of fun. The weather update. So we also did a weather update, which was just a really short, 10, 15-second video clip. Okay, now let's hear from our instructors in the field for the weather update. How's the weather out there?
The weather at Richland is very cold. It's brisk fall weather. I'm jumping up and down because it's freezing.
Thanks for that weather update, ladies.
But one thing that popped up was all the weather words that our students could learn from actually seeing what the weather looked like and how warm or cold the person was or how bundled up they were, and then those weather words. So that was another awesome kind of natural way for students to grab onto the language of weather. So now we're going to talk about how it went and what was the result and kind of the successes and failures of the project. And we'll start with just by talking about how many viewers we had. And each video was about 30 minutes long because it was a collection of shorter videos, little kind of news clips. But that first video, there were like over 150 viewers, which was awesome. And it's kind of petered out since then, but I think probably because the last video came out like Christmas Eve, and most of our students, all our students were done, and they probably haven't seen it since the new year yet. But overall, there's been a great reception, a lot of good feedback and comments. And then I know for myself, I've used sections of the video for my classes as well, and they've kind of latched onto that to an extent. But I'll say honestly, this pandemic season has been challenging for our students, and they're not very enthusiastic about classes. They're not motivated. So just honestly, that's been a challenge. And one of my hopes was that with this video project that that would boost morale. And I would say that's happened to a small extent, but certainly not as much as I would have hoped. What about you, Amy? What would you say?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit, because to be honest, students are feeling overwhelmed and also, kind of burnt out. But I think the instructors as well and staff, I think we're feeling the same exact thing. And so I think the biggest benefit was really for our coworkers, just to really, we received many emails and comments that, that was really encouraging for them. Just to feel, I think mostly what we're missing is community. We had a really, really great, thriving community before the pandemic. So that's something, just working from home or working in the office part-time, but still you don't see very many people. It's been really tough just losing that community, that sense of community. And so I think it really reminded everyone of like, oh yeah, these are coworkers that are still in it. We're still together. We still have some of the same goals. We're just trying to reach our students, and just to feel that again, that, oh, okay, we're not alone. So I think that was really great. I think we did begin this at the end of the semester. And so it's a little bit harder, I think, to get the students into it, right? Because we're kind of towards the end. I'm hoping that maybe as we go on, as the instructors are invested, maybe they'll be excited about sharing it with their students. And like you said, maybe even using it in a class, especially like a listening and speaking class, using some of the videos for even assignments or something like that. So hopefully in the future it can grow. And I think also we were just trying to figure it out the first few months. So now I think we have kind of a good rhythm. So I think hopefully in the future the students will be more involved and interested for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you said it was kind of a test run, and we kind of figured out a lot of things, kind of how to build a video, how to get it onto YouTube and share it with faculty and students. And now we've learned a lot from those mistakes. So that's maybe one of the benefits that we've had as well. And hopefully you can, as you're watching this, you all can learn from our mistakes, learn from our successes, and venture out on your own without having to make the same mistakes that we did. And so let's talk some about that. What do you think going forward we could do? And I think one of the first things that we should encourage people is to make shorter videos. Like I said, we made 30-minute video, this big collection of smaller videos, but it might be best to just keep them small and just send out those small 5-minute videos. And that gives flexibilities for teachers and students to watch it at their leisure. But then also for teachers to use those videos in their classroom at the specific time they need that section, rather than the whole 30-minute thing. That would be a pretty major assignment for students to watch through and maybe answer questions related to it or do all the vocabulary with it. Instead, we can just keep the short clips independent, and students can watch those and interact with them in that way. What are some other suggestions or advice that you'd have for someone interested in doing something like this?
I think just, like you said, start small, practice with, just one section or one thing that if you want to focus on pets, or you want to focus on or do an interview. And I mean, if you're really good at making videos, so Matthew, he's very modest, but he is excellent at making these videos now. He has been making videos for our department for the last couple of years, I think. And so he's definitely our go-to. I think everyone in our department is like, I need to make a video, Matthew. So he's doing everything, right? But I think if you don't have that much experience, just start small. And, see what the reception is. I think most people are excited if it's about your school, if it's with your students or with coworkers, I think most people at this point are encouraged by that and excited to see that. Just keep it positive, start small, build your way up. And I do think that 30 minutes is a little bit long for some of the people in this new generation, right? It's a little bit long, but we can always take those big videos and break them up into smaller sections too. So yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is, have fun, enjoy yourself, And if you enjoy it, then other people will enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it and it just becomes a task, it's probably not going to come across as very enjoyable. But I think for Matthew and I, we enjoy having these interviews. We enjoy taking these videos. And so since we enjoy the process, it comes through in our work.
Absolutely. And that's one of the great things too about collaboration. You can kind of focus on the part that you enjoy, and then you can hand off the other parts to other coworkers or to students, and they can really jump onto what they enjoy. So that's another encouragement to you, is to collaborate, work together with others, because even putting together a small video can be daunting. So get some help and work together with others. And then one thing that I was really encouraged by this last semester, so fall of 2019, is I got my students to create one video. And that was, it's challenging for them to get one finished, but they did a good job. And it was around the time of Thanksgiving that the project was going to be completed. So we did a "What are you thankful for?" video, and students submitted, a short clip of them just talking about things that they're thankful for. So that was collected and put together into a video. And so I would definitely encourage you to integrate the video creation into your classroom. And with that thankful video, I used Flipgrid for students to submit their posts. And then I used multiple ways. So they could email me, they could submit it through a Google Drive file, or they could put it up through Flipgrid, or even upload it through Microsoft Teams. So it's like, any way that you can get me that video, I will take it. And you might have to work with your students and see what works best for them. But Flipgrid seemed to be the easiest for most students. So they used that to submit their video. And then we recorded it, or we collected it and created one "What are you thankful for?" video. But definitely integrate that into the curriculum, and you let your students be part of the process. And that's something I've learned from project-based learning, that including your students in the whole process of some kind of creation, some kind of project that you can then share with your class, but then beyond the class to the real world, is something that they can really latch on to. And get excited about, and really produce something better than if it's just something for a grade. A lot of students, they're not as motivated by just getting a grade. They just want to pass for that. But if you say, hey, this is something your parents might see, this is something your friends will see, this is something all the staff will see, then they get more excited about it and put a little more pressure and a little more energy into that. One of the final things that I would suggest is to integrate the viewing of the video as well into your assignments. So you could have that as an assignment for students to watch the video that was created, and then you could have questions, or you could have a vocabulary quiz, something like that, where students are, and then this could be for multiple classes, or it could be for the same class, where the class works together to create a video, and then they take a quiz over the vocabulary of that video. Or it could be for multiple classes.
Yeah, and something that I think you mentioned before was even the interview section, like teaching students how to do interviews or how to respond to interviews, which is a very important life skill. And just having them watch an interview and see how people interact, and then also making their own interviews, maybe with fellow students or someone in their household. So that's another option, for making an assignment for them, having them work on interviews.
Absolutely. And that's something that I do every semester with my listening and speaking class. I have them create an interview, like a video mock interview. But now I have some great samples, some great kind of authentic examples of what an interview should look like from my coworkers. So now they can see kind of what the quality is, and then they can, strive to achieve that kind of quality, rather than me just assigning a task without them having any idea of what it might look like. So they have some good models, and they have some ideas about the vocabulary of interviews, and even the what it looks like to do a video interview.
Yeah, and I think there's, like you mentioned before, there's great value in having them see authentic conversations in English, right? I think that's super important. And it's something that if you just teach a class, it's not usually going to happen because you're always just speaking with the students, which is also great, but they don't see how two people who are just regular English speakers are having conversations every day. It's a little bit different kind of conversation. So I think with the interviews and just the interactions, and I think some of those words that we don't usually teach, but that are authentic to our everyday lives, really come out in these kinds of videos too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we hope that this will inspire you to begin creating your own videos, and they could be more on the fun or funny side, like the top tips that I created with my children, or those pet updates, or they could be more academic or more serious, I guess, like the interview projects that we did. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for your help with the videos and for helping me present and share some of our ideas with Text ESOL. And I am thankful to work with you and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be a part of the videos, and just it's really great to work with you. You're awesome at the videos. So I appreciate all of your very hard work. I know sometimes it gets tedious, but I hope that that other people will be inspired to do something fun for their school.
Pet